On the corner of Linden and Rockdale, in the Brightmoor neighborhood of Detroit, sits a small brown house, not unlike any others in the neighborhood. Looking closer, there's some damage scattered throughout and some bullet holes in the window. But if you walk towards the front door, you'll hear laughter and praise coming from inside. There's something special happening in this small brown house that's changing the neighborhood. This is Hesed Community Church.
So my name is Mark Van Andel, and I am a minister in the Christian Reformed Church and partnered here with Nate Bull of the RCA to do this ministry of Hesed Community Church here in the Brightmoor neighborhood of Detroit.
Nate Bull, founder and the president of Urban Apostolic Network. We started scouting Detroit. Somebody had done demographic study of Detroit, showed us areas where there was still a lot of people traffic.
So Nate and I have had some critiques of the local church sometimes, where it seems like sometimes the local church is so Sunday centric that it loses its impact throughout the week. And as we looked at this neighborhood, we realized that we couldn't just be here in the neighborhood 1 or 2 days a week and have a real impact. So we decided to say, let's start by, instead of buying a church building or setting up a Sunday service, which there are dozens of them in the neighborhood, we said, let's set up a house.
Started scouting it and saw the Hesed house. It was for sale. I think it was online. I think it was 15 grand they had it on, and we offered 8 and they took it. So paid cash for it and then started doing ministry. In positioning ourselves in the middle of the neighborhood, you take out that barrier of the church facade, that the stained glass windows, that kind of that's a hindrance in the beginning, and then so that way when we open it up, is they don't think about it and they don't even realize that it's a church plant effort in the beginning, which is really, really important. So it's kind of like a disguise.
Because we're in a neighborhood of high need, there is a need for people to have tangible needs met. So we'll provide people with clothing or food.
We stock it with things that would attract people to us or would minister to the people who would be walking by. So having stuff to make into sandwiches is really important. Having a dryer and a washer is really important. Having a place for emergency housing, like maybe where someone could spend the night, is really important.
So we're kind of just a good neighbor, and trying to be good neighbors in the neighborhood.
But it's just a paradigm shift in our minds, because then the difference between that and another ministry or a traditional ministry is that we're never close.
So then we started a community, we started Bible study, and so we established this pattern of on Thursdays doing a lunch and a Bible study. So we started doing that for about a year, and then at the end of the year, we felt like there were a handful of people who had shown a lot of diligence in participating, a lot of ownership, and we took those folks and invited them into a discipleship process.
I think the neighborhood has been surprised. They're really shocked. And I have yet to meet someone from this neighborhood who has reacted in a negative fashion, who has gotten to know us.
This is not a community that lots of people are flocking to move into. And so when we move in, when we bought the house and started being here more regularly, some people were skeptical. They thought we were part of the police or whatever. So there was some resistance to that. But I think over time, as we've established kind of patterns and rhythms of ministry and been able to build relationships with people, they see that we don't have an agenda other than caring for, loving people, and teaching them about the Word.
The joy in my heart has been seeing people who have done really, really hard things in their life, maybe done things they've been ashamed about, taking lead in ministry efforts, and other people who've known them before being really caught off guard that they're working with church people. I like to see the purpose come back into someone's face, and that allows me to keep on working hard.
One beautiful thing that I've learned from Nate in terms of thinking about the Christian journey is just having lots of patience for people. We've seen some people who it takes months and months and months of long relationship building. And it's almost as if you can see proximity-wise, like they start on the street and we meet them on the street, and then they move to the sidewalk a week or two later. And then a month or two later, they'll come in the door of the house and they'll be in the house and get a cup of coffee. And then 2 months later, then they'll sit down for Bible study. So it's like this progression where we start to see people slowly over time, their walls of resistance are lowered and they're open to hearing about the gospel and engaging with the gospel in a tangible way.
Doing life together, and when you start to see them get hope and get excited about what their future can be, that's enough for me.
There are some Christians who see what we're doing here and they feel like we're not really doing church. So they would call us an outreach ministry or something.
But it's the misconception is that I think, and they never say it this way, but they kind of say, like, well, when you guys are going to really do church? And I understand what they're saying, and I understand how come maybe some of them don't understand what we're doing. Because eventually, the people that you're doing discipleship work and doing Bible study with, eventually they say, well, why don't we get together on Sunday? So we don't mind going towards that. It's just not our starting point.
The way that we define church is just a group of people who are living lives of obedience to the Lord together. Nate and I have said to ourselves, we're not raising up good churchgoers, but we're raising up hopefully good disciples who will make disciples. So as we think about church in that way, it has less to do with what happens on a Sunday and more to happen about what happens week through the week that defines us as a community.
Hesed is important because of the people in this neighborhood. And it's difficult for me to hear how hurting they are and broken they are, and then to realize how many churches are around here and wonder, are they valuable as people to you at the church? So I feel like Hesed in general is important, first of all, to love the people of this neighborhood, but also to be a witness to the church or against the church.
So Hesed or other similar church planting ministries on the fringe, on the edges of mission, these ministries help the church to conceive of new ways of doing church and being the church in communities. Hopefully it can reciprocate onto long-standing churches, that they can start to think about their own neighborhoods in specific, tangible ways and new ways that they may not have discovered before. Hesed also allows us to be able to see the value that all people have. That it's not like we can qualify people as higher and lower in the church. We're commanded not to see people with wealth as higher than other people by the scripture. So it's realizing there are gifts here and there are abilities here, and that the Lord is present here in this community. And it allows us all to look through this framework that helps us to see God's kingdom through a bigger lens than we may have imagined before.
Many people that come to this ministry house that live on less than $2 a day. And that's stuff that we heard about in like West Africa. That's stuff that we heard in like some places in South America, and that's not the United States, but it is.
So the RCA has been open to dialoguing with us and engaging with us in a different model of church. So I appreciate their willingness to consider that what Nate and I are doing here is unique, and being open to learning about new ways of church planting, especially in urban environments, and has offered some expertise and some assistance in different ways that has helped us to shape and form what we're doing here.
One of the I think part of the work that I feel really called to, and not just doing the inner city work, is back to the denomination to help them understand why we do what we do, and the great potential that they're missing out on if they don't figure out how to do missionary work in their own backyard.
And hopefully we've helped the RCA as well in terms of thinking about mission in different ways and engaging in different ways in neighborhoods. So.
For me, it's really interesting to think about something like, let's say, Matthew 28. And they're saying, go to all the world and make disciples of all the nations. And I don't know that the church in the West thinks about discipling nations. And so for us, doing this kind of outreach, like a community outreach center, a mission outpost like this, is discipling an entire neighborhood. I feel like if we could, as the church, let's say in America right now, if we could learn how to do community outreach like this, it would help us disciple entire neighborhoods and cities, because coming once on Sunday isn't good enough. But if it's a day in, day out, always open to doing that kind of life on life work, the discipleship work goes quickly.